Greetings, friends. Ken McAuliffe, the Jazz Vinyl Lover, back today. I thought I would talk about something kind of unusual. I think it's unusual. Frank Sinatra. Some people probably think Frank Sinatra is not a jazz singer. Frank Sinatra is not only a jazz singer, Frank Sinatra is one of the greatest singers of all time because he was really a musician who controlled the bands he played with the tempo of his voice, with his articulation, with his phrasing. There's no jazz singer who hasn't been heavily influenced by Frank Sinatra. And he's also, one of the few American artists to reinvent himself about 12 times. Really only Sinatra, Miles Davis, and I guess to a lesser degree Frank Zappa maybe, constantly reinvented himself, constantly searched within their own souls to find who they were, and constantly found new audiences. So I have a bunch of Sinatra records, but I thought I would talk about 5 in particular that sort of cover the different spans, and then maybe get into why, very briefly, why he is such a great singer. And people who don't like Sinatra, it's easy to dislike someone like Sinatra now, particularly today when, there probably wasn't a bigger misogynist pig than Frank Sinatra, but that was that era. Misogyny was just rife in every part of society. Look at any ad, look at any movie, it's everywhere. So to lambaste Sinatra for that and the Rat Pack, geez, it was everywhere. He was kind of a leader, he was kind of a macho guy. But beyond that, that's the persona of 50s male Americana, tough guys. We hadn't yet seen Woody Allen and sensitive singer-songwriters and all that, which spawned Friends, which spawned hipsterism, but that's a whole nother story. Anyway, this is 1960 swing easy on Capitol. This is what maybe he's best known for. That whole era of post-war Americana, white flight to the suburbs. This is the soundtrack to a very prosperous suburban America, and these are just fantastic tunes, compositions. Nelson Riddle doing a lot of the arrangements, and Sinatra, if you watch some of the videos of him later, he's as much a part of the music and the director of the music as anything else involved. The man knew exactly what he wanted to hear. He was this little skinny guy from Hoboken, who was really a genius, a musical genius. He got to start with Tommy Dorsey. Well, I guess after the Bobby Sox era, where I think he even did like a record singing with a dog or something, he played with the big bands and he learned how to phrase through Tommy Dorsey. And there's an amazing video much later in his career with is my favorite Sinatra video of Antonio Carlos Jobim with Sinatra, and they're working together. It is astounding. I think that record is kind of dull compared to that performance. It is just, and they're singing Girl from Ipanema, and there's a little bit of cheese in there, but good Lord, the phrasing and the vibe of that performance, and you see the respect between two geniuses is really amazing. This is not 1960, this is 1954, I'm sorry. Yeah, 1954, and this is obviously a reissue, because I guess in 54, it would have been a 78. There's a black Capitol label. I think this is before the the Beatles Capitol labels. But this has a bunch of his classic tunes. This is really a filthy sleeve I have on here. Come Fly With Me. Geez, there's so many songs. They can't take that away from me. A Foggy Day. I Get a Kick Out of You. My Funny Valentine. Get Happy. All of Me. Just one of those things. Jeepers Creepers. These are just such upbeat tunes. And there's the one album where he's like, I think he's doing like a hitchhike sign, and behind him is a jet getting ready to take off. And that was America in the 1950s. A great time to be white, prosperous in America. I was born in Michigan. My father was an immigrant from Malta. And there was, we lived in Detroit, at the epicenter of American prosperity, I guess, in the early 60s. There was such an incredible feeling that you can do anything. It was so powerful in Detroit. Now Detroit, we all know what Detroit is. It's a shell. In a lot of ways, it's a metaphor for America. But this is a great, great record. Mono, worth searching out. And all his Capitol stuff is just really fantastic. For some people, that's prime Sinatra. His voice is young. He's upbeat. He's got a wonderful life. And then we have from 1964, it might as well be Swing with Count Basie. This is just an amazing performance. This is one of the great, Sinatra singing with a big band, and one of the greatest big bands, and you can hear the respect they have for each other. Every little inch, every meter swings so hard. It's also a great Reprise recording. Reprise was Sinatra's label. He left Capitol in 1960 to start his own label, and that's why leading up to Reprise, there are definitely some throwaway albums on Capitol. Like, he just went in and knocked them off. There's like 4 or 5 of them. He just doesn't seem to really care. Sort of similar to Miles when he left Prestige to go to Columbia, but the difference is Miles created 5 masterpieces, relaxing, smoking, cooking, can't remember the other 2, that are, that set the template for hard bop jazz artists. As where those 5 records, most of those are with Nelson Riddle or Billy May. They're fun, but they're just kind of throwaway to a degree. But this record, if you're going to get a Sinatra record, this is an incredible place to start. He's getting a little bit older here. Some of the same tunes, but it's done with a serious swing big band, not Nelson Riddle. And, Fly Me to the Moon, I Wish You Love, I Can't Stop Loving You, Hello Dolly. I mean, the guy did have an ear for cheese. Hello Dolly. I Want to Be Around. That's a really funny song. I Want to Be Around, I think, was originally given to Tony Bennett. And the story I heard was, I want to be around when someone comes to break your heart. Apparently this woman was really mad at Frank Sinatra for dumping his first wife, so she wrote a letter to Tony Bennett, and he credited her, and they wrote this song based on this woman being pissed off at Frank Sinatra, and it's a great song. What else is on here? The Best Is Yet to Come, The Good Life, what a great song. Wives and Lovers, the Burt Bacharach tune. Just another, what year is this? This is 64. Beatlemania is in full flight. The Folkies hate Ashbury, but this is still, reminiscing about the power of, full-on Americana. I'm sorry to say, white Americana. But then again, arranged and conducted by Quincy Jones with the great Count Basie. If you take the social, political bullshit out of it, this is just an amazing, swinging performance by both Basie and Sinatra. Just an epic record. Then, in 1965, he's only 45, but he does September of My Years, which knocked the Beatles off the chart. This album won many, many Grammys, and it's sort of a musing on getting old and aging. I remember, when I was a little kid, you'd hear, No Reply by the Beatles, or I'm a Loser. Then you'd hear, when I was 21, it was a very good year. And it was a little corny then, but I love the artwork. It's that 60s look of the romanticized brushstrokes. And again, another record on Reprise. There is footage of this, it's very easy to see online, where they're doing It Was a Very Good Year live, and that is the take that you hear on this record. And you can see in that take how he's controlling the orchestra. His voice, he controls the tempo of the songs. A lot of the lines you're hearing, granted this is it Nelson Riddle? Oh, it's Gordon Jenkins, who wrote the incredible Goodbye, one of the saddest songs of all time. I'll talk about that later, but Sinatra just had such incredible phrasing and pacing, and if you're a musician, you can hear it. The guy was he had such incredible, he had a beautiful voice to begin with, but he just had some inherent guide, this tough kid from Hoboken, in his soul was a really sensitive dude. And talking about that, you can't forget about the whole, he's the guy who created the concept record with No One Cares, Songs for the Lonely, and one other one. Can't remember the 3 of them. There are 3 concept albums basically about having your heart broken. And that was after he was with this beautiful actress named Ava Gardner, and she dumped him like a pack of cigarettes, and it destroyed him. And he, like a great artist, used it to create this new idea. I guess the Torch song, I think some people call it the Torch song trilogy. The 3 albums he did on Capitol. They're a little maudlin, I guess, but they're also really, really beautiful. Those records, the templates for what Linda Ronstadt did in the 70s or the 80s, I believe, which her records really reintroduced a lot of people who'd never heard of Sinatra like me to Sinatra. I mean, she had Nelson Riddle conducting on those records. Those were amazing, beautiful records. They're not as deep as Sinatra's records. But anyway, this is a beautiful record. And it's just all about musing. I mean, I'm getting older, but I've always loved this record. But as you get older, you tend to love this record a little bit more. I gotta, hold on. Don't go anywhere. Wait a minute. Don't go anywhere. Okay. We're back, okay. This has classic tunes. Don't Wait Too Long. One of the most beautiful songs is It Gets Lonely Early. About when your kids have gone off to school, and once again, you know, you're living in a big house out in the suburbs, it gets lonely early. And it's just really touching and really, really sad. When the wind was green, it sounds like the wind. It's an amazing song. Last Night When We Were Young. It's all about reminiscing, which is kind of sad, but it's really, really beautiful. Then, the heavy hitter, he's starting to fall off the charts again. Nobody cares about Frank, even though that was a hit. And what does he come back with in 1966? Strangers in the Night. This took the Beatles off the chart with the track Strangers in the Night. I love this record for the recording of the band. Irv Cotler on drums, maybe Tommy Tedesco on guitar. The band is just insane. The way they groove so hard. And there's a lot of different tempos on this record. It's another Reprise record. But there's, you know, he does the cover of Downtown, the Petula Clark song, and he's making fun of it. They probably made him do it. It's a twist beat, but it grooves so hard. All or Nothing at All, a song he'd done a lot earlier. Call Me, which was also like a hit by some other pop singer. Then On a Clear Day, which was, you know, the Barbra Streisand song, but his version is so slow. Nobody plays tempos like that anymore. Nobody plays slow tempos anymore. But this is so slow. You could take a shower in between the quarter notes. It's so slow. And then the Most Beautiful Girl in the World. This really, really super fast song. The dynamics are incredible. You know, his bands, once again, he controlled his bands through the way he sang. He knew exactly what we wanted to hear, and they had utmost respect for Sinatra. And then, you know, maybe the long-term classic on this record, Summer Wind, which has been used in so many soundtracks, and it's kind of it sounds like summer. In beautiful orchestration. I think Nelson Riddle is really at his peak on this record. And then the same year, 66, that same sort of hazy brushstroke artwork as September of My Years. And once again, I think he is with Nelson Riddle. There's Sinatra and Nelson Riddle. And it's all songs about the moon, doing theme songs, I guess. And some of it's a little corny, but there's one song on here called Oh You Crazy Moon. And once again, the band is just grooving so hard. And you can really hear it. It's beautifully recorded. I don't know where they recorded these. I assume it was out in LA somewhere. But Moonlight Becomes You, Moon Song, Moonlight Serenade, Reaching for the Moon, I Wished on the Moon. That's a little bit corny, you know. But Oh You Crazy Moon, and The Moon Was Yellow. The Moon Was Yellow is very Spanish. It's you know, it's once again, it's very nostalgic. You know, Sinatra's a very sentimental guy. He wore his heart on his sleeve. And then on the opposite opposing idea, he was this rough, tough guy. You know, he was a mobster. But he was also, you know, he fought for Sammy Davis Jr. when nobody else did out in Las Vegas. You know, he wouldn't take shit one way or the other. You know, I used to get my mail down in the corner where this old guy, Lenny Cecilia, ran the mailbox shop. And all these old dudes who were already in their 80s, and this is 10 years ago, would come in and hang out. And these guys were real old school New Yorkers. And one of them, Philly DeChico, was best friends with Jelly Rizzo, who was best friends with Sinatra in New York. There was a club in Midtown called Rizzo's, where all the Rat Pack guys would hang out, Joey Bishop, Angie Dickinson, and this guy Jelly would go in there a lot. And Phil used to tell these stories about Jilly Rizzo, and Jilly died in his Jaguar when it caught on fire and he couldn't get the door open. Just so bizarre. But that's a real, you know, it's not a forgotten slice of Americana because it's constantly still in commercials, and Michael Bublé, you know, Michael Bublé is like the pastel little blue boy of big band swing. You know, he couldn't swing Sinatra's toe, you know. But he has a pretty voice. If you don't like Frank Sinatra, I suggest you get his Capitol records, because they're just infectious, wonderful records. And he deserves some due. All right, thanks for checking in. Chemical Jazz Vital Order. Have a great week. Bye-bye.